You're not going to want to miss this one, ladies and gentlemen. UFC 312 is for sure going to bring out all the casuals, all the John Jones fans, all the Conor McGregor fans are for sure going to be tuning in for the rematch of DDP versus Strickland. And the co-main event, a women's title is on the line, the strawweight division, where, Zhang Weili is taking on Tatiana Suarez. I am a little bit excited for Tatiana Suarez just to get the chance. But yeah, boys, looks like the UFC mailed this one in. Justin Tafa, featured bout. Jimmy Crute's out of retirement all of a sudden. What are we doing here? Australia's just getting some of the worst cards. It's Canada and Australia. They just get completely screwed on these cards. It's a pay-per-view. Like, how am I going to justify paying $85 for this pay-per-view card? I don't know. Might have to hit the old Russian link. But either way, it's a card. It's a UFC card on a Saturday. It's a pay-per-view. The prelims are okay. The decent matchups, but, the name value is just not there. So, hopefully, you're interested in this one. I'll be interested in it because I'm interested in every single UFC card. But either way, we're going to go through. I'll give you my early picks for every single fight on the card. And I'm sure you're going to have some questions because there's a lot of new faces. But before we get into that, let's take a recap of UFC Saudi Arabia. The card overall was, I didn't think it was the greatest card from an entertainment standpoint. But the straight bets, we lost 1.1 units. I got crazy closing line value on 4 of these bets. Lucas Alexander flipped to a favorite. We lost that one. Farazam cash, Michael Venom Page cash. The parlay. Adesany's just completely cooked. You're getting chinned by Imavov like that? Roman Dolidze went 5 rounds with the guy. Jesus. The props were just long shots. Just threw them out there. Didn't really have a great chance of hitting those. So we lost a little bit on that. Not much. The round props, I got closing line value on all these, man. Plus 190 on the under 2.5. Closed at plus 145. The over 1.5 closed at minus 180. Got it at minus 145, and the fight not to go the distance closed at about minus 110. Got it at plus 125. We lose all of those. So got great CLV, and if you're a real bettor, you know what CLV means, but it just seems like any time you get CLV nowadays, it's just a guaranteed loss. So we lost 1.1 units on the straight bets and the parlays there, but the DFS, we held a barbecue cookout on the DFS apps. We went up 7 units on the better picks and the underdog fantasy plays. So if you tailed those, you for sure made some great bank. We hit 4 out of the 5 slips. And the only line that I got wrong in the entire card was Shamil Gaziev. Shamil Gaziev with the one-punch knockout. Didn't really see that one coming, but props to him. I had the higher on significant strikes, and he got him out of there in round 1 with one punch. But everything else was pretty much no sweat. The Shar Magomedov line was just crazy. Can't believe it was at 85.5. I think he finished with 40. So less than half of that. Crazy. So we made a ton of money on the DFS apps. So overall, we were up 5.9 units in net profit on UFC Saudi Arabia to push the 2025 total to plus 10.79 units throughout 3 UFC cards. If you want all my bets, I do have 2 bets locked in for UFC 312 already. Use my code HeyJive when you join the Homo Fight Picks premium membership on Winnable. There's a link down in the description. It'll get you a 7-day free trial, and you can join the Winnable and get all the bets. You can look at my bets that I have out already for UFC 312. And a big thing with these DFS plays, I'll usually lock these in on Monday or Tuesday, and you'll get those before anybody else does, before I give them out later in the week on Thursday and Friday. So the lines, you get the lines that I get, and they don't move. So join the Homo Fight Picks Winnable. That's where you get all my bets. But we're going to talk about picks and predictions and breakdowns for UFC 312. First fight of the night, Hyun Sung Park taking on Naim Jargal, Tumendemberel. This is what we got to start off the card. Flyweight bout. Sung Park, the guy is road to the UFC product, which is pretty disgusting. Hate road to the UFC. He's a favorite in this one. Tumendemberel is also a road to the UFC product, so we're slim pickings here. But Park is more of a grappler. I think his stand-up is decent, but, we only really got to see that against Shannon Ross, and Shannon Ross has no chin whatsoever. He was getting hit with like a jab, and he was doing a little dance, like he was dancing out there, like almost knocked out with a jab. Shannon Ross is awful, and Park made him look like awful, like he is. So good for Park. But either way, I think he's more of a grappler, and I think he's probably going to try to take down Tumendemberel in this fight, because Tumendemberel does have some opportunistic submissions on his record, but I don't think he's the best grappler. His takedown defense is not very good, but he is very opportunistic, and on the feet, he throws bombs. I mean, he landed a knockdown on Carlos Hernandez in his UFC debut. It went to a split decision. First loss on the career, split decision. I do think he lost that fight, but he did put up a good showing. I thought Carlos would maybe expose him a little bit more in the wrestling and the grappling, but Tumendemberel held his own for the most part. That's where he lost the fight, but I thought it would be a little bit more of a dominance in that area. But Tumendemberel looked decent, honestly, for me. I didn't think he was that great, but he's a big dog here. I think he's about plus 200 in this spot, and I don't really agree with it just because I don't think Park is all that great. I think he's a decent striker with decent grappling. Overall, he doesn't really blow me away in any aspect. He's probably the more skilled fighter, but we got to remember this is a cage fight. This is a cage fight where Tumendemberel is going to throw the kitchen sink at you, and if you ain't ready for it, he could definitely catch Hyung-Sung Park, who is getting caught by Shannon Ross in some aspects. So I'm tending to lean towards the dog here in Naim Jargal Tumendemberel. Coming off the loss, facing an undefeated guy, I think he has the capabilities to win this fight. Make it a brawl, make it nasty, make it awkward, and he could probably pull off a victory. So I'm going to side with my early pick as the underdog. I think that's just the side here to play him as the underdog, or at least I would say dog or pass. People don't like it when you say dog or pass, but in my opinion, it makes sense. I'm not going to be picking, or at least I'm not going to be betting on Park at minus 230, minus 240 something. So I'm going to side with the dog here as my early pick. Definitely want to look at a little bit more because I don't really like road to the UFC fighters in general. Both of them are products, and I'm just going to side with the dog here in Tumendemberel. I think if he makes it nasty, he's got a good chance to win. Moving on. Quillan Salkilld taking on Anshul Jubli. The return of Jubli. I remember watching this dude in his UFC debut, and he was like minus 330. He was looking great. I think he was up 2018 on Mike Breeden. And then Breeden just turned it up. And we saw that Anshul Jubli kind of has a quit button, or at least a slow down and get me out of here type of button. I mean, the guy started to get hit with a couple right hands. Mike Breeden was barking in his face, and Jubli was like, I don't know what is happening right now. I don't know. Get me out of here. And he got out of there. He got out of there, and that was his first loss, and pretty much just exposed the level of competition that this guy's been facing, because Mike Breeden got cut from the UFC after that. He's not good. Okay, Jubli's not that good. He's a decent stand-up with like decent wrestling, but the wrestling has only been shown against road to UFC products. So it's just not good. Jubli's just not good. And Quillan Salkilld looked pretty damn good on the Contender Series, and I think his overall skill set has a lot of abilities to beat Jubli here. I mean, he's a young guy from Australia. His Contender Series fight pretty much had everything you would look for. I mean, stand-up looked good, wrestling looked good, grappling looked good. It was kind of a back-and-forth type of fight, like it was a really competitive fight, and his opponent, Gage Young, pretty solid fighter, but Quillan was just getting a little bit better of the exchanges in almost all the aspects, and won most of the rounds, got the win, got the contract. I think the guy's pretty solid. I don't really see how Jubli comes in here and finishes Salkilld. I don't think Jubli is finishing the guy, and I think Salkilld will win the minutes, win the moments, probably win this fight either by decision, or he'll probably finish Jubli, honestly. I don't think Jubli is going to go in there and dog it out with Salkilld, who's a pretty tough guy, throws a lot at you, and he probably finds a finish. So Salkilld is the pick for me. I think he comes in here in Australia, picks up a dub, and India takes another L. Moving on. Kevin Jousset taking on Jonathan Micallef. It's a weird one for me because I think I liked what I saw from Micallef on the Contender Series. I picked him to win. I bet on him to beat his opponent. I forget his name, but it was one of those names that probably a little bit tough to pronounce. He looked big. For one, he looked really big. I mean, he's 6 foot, but he looked very filled out. He looked long, and it really just turned into a grappling match, which I thought he would be the better grappler than his opponent, and it proved to be so. I mean, he got a takedown. He got put in a guillotine. He got out of it, transition, hit him with a triangle choke, and put him unconscious. So I think the guy's grappling is definitely his best skill set on the feet. I think Jousset will definitely be the better kickboxer, training at City Kickboxing. He's going to be the better kickboxer. So if this fight's on the feet, Jousset's probably going to look a lot better. I don't think Micallef has the technical striking that Jousset does. But I think if Micallef can get the grappling going, he can have some success there. The thing is, these City Kickboxing guys have really good takedown defense, and Jousset has pretty solid takedown defense. Brian Battle was trying to take him down a lot. Didn't have success with that, but ultimately was just able to overpower him on the feet with volume and just like a chin of like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to take anything you throw at me and throw 5 more shots back at you. I don't think Micallef has that. But the initial takedown defense from Jousset is probably what saves him here and is probably why he's favored the way he is. I think he's like minus 250, which I think is a little bit rich. But if he does get taken down by Micallef, I think Micallef can go to work there. He can have extended periods of top time. He can use his jiu-jitsu, maybe find a submission, or at least put Jousset in positions he doesn't want to be, maybe tire him out on the ground. So I think Micallef, as the plus 200 underdog that he's looking at right now, is looking a little bit interesting because I think the grappling upside is there for him. Younger guy. I mean, Jousset is nearly 32 with, 3 UFC fights, and his wins are Kiefer Crosby and Song Kanon. It's not exactly like great competition, and he pretty much just got dog walked by Brian Battle. So I kind of showed the levels. Brian Battle's not even a ranked guy yet. So I think Micallef could come in here and put on a good fight, and I think the grappling aspect could be huge here for Micallef. Look like a brick house there on the Contender Series. So I'm tending to lean towards Micallef just because he's the underdog. I'm looking at the betting line. He's about plus 200 right now. Jousset is minus 250. It just doesn't really make sense to me. But if Jousset can just keep this fight on the feet, then yeah, he'll probably win. He's the better kickboxer. But right now I'm leaning towards Micallef just because of the grappling upside. Moving on. Alexandre Topuria taking on Colby Thicknesse. Thicknesse. What a name. And the storyline going into this one is going to be Topuria is obviously Ilia Topuria's brother. Is he as good as Ilia Topuria? No. But he hasn't really had a lot of activity. I mean, you look at the Tapology right here. 5 fights date back to 2015, 10 years ago. The guy hasn't really been fighting. But he did look pretty solid in his last fight, which was 2 years ago. Got him out of there in the first round, got him down to the ground, pretty much neutralized him and TKO'd him. So he looked really good in his last fight, but the guy just doesn't fight. And he's been waiting to make his UFC debut for a while. And so back to the storyline. Topuria, Alexandre is Ilia Topuria's brother, and Colby Thicknesse is Alexander Volkanovski's training partner. Been there for a while, and you actually watch Colby Thicknesse fight. His stand-up looks so similar to Volkanovski, but it's not effective. It's not effective at all. The similarities are like the way he moves, the way he feints. He keeps his hands out here. He's kind of feinting, jab, low kick, but it's not Volkanovski whatsoever. It's not. The guy gets tagged on the feet. He really wants to get you down to the ground and grapple with you. That's where his best game is, when he's able to get on top of you, get your back, put you in those positions. His stand-up is not good. I've seen him get tagged a lot on the regional scene, and I think Topuria does have some pretty solid boxing. It's very tough to judge how good Topuria is because he doesn't fight that often. There's not a lot of film. He's only had 6 fights, and most of his fights are like 2 years apart. But you could see, based on his loss, which was a long time ago, 8+ years ago, compared to his last fight in 2023, he looks a lot better. Now, his level of competition is probably not that good. Topuria is a big favorite in this one, which I was kind of shocked to see just because he doesn't have that much experience, not active. Colby Thicknesse, 7-0, the number 1 ranked bantamweight in Australia and New Zealand. I thought Colby Thicknesse would probably be plus 150, plus 180. But based on the tape, I think Topuria looked good in his last fight. This one's a very tough one to judge because Topuria is like a question mark. And I see a lot of holes in Thicknesse's game where I'm like, if Topuria comes out like he did, it shows the skills he did in his last fight, I think he probably beats him. So I'm going to side with Topuria just based on the eye test. I don't know how good this guy is. It's pretty tough to judge without seeing a lot of film, but I do look at Thicknesse's weaknesses, and I think Topuria could probably exploit them on the feet. Does hit pretty hard, so I'll take Topuria for the early pick, but this is one you probably just want to lay off and enjoy. Moving on. Cody Steele taking on Rongzhu. Cody Steele, I don't know if you watched Saudi Arabia, but many times throughout the broadcast, they had this promo that said, watch Cody Steele, a UFC Fight Pass alum. Watch Cody Steele next week on UFC 312. And I was like, whoa, what is this about? Cody Steele hasn't had a UFC fight. Now, he's had a lot of competitions with UFC Fight Pass through a bunch of jiu-jitsu matches and all that. He's a Las Vegas guy. They know him very well. Fought in the Contender Series, looked good, got a finish, gets signed. But I'm like, when has this ever happened where this guy hasn't had a UFC fight yet and they're promoting him on a UFC broadcast, like during a card? This dude's on the prelims. He's fighting Rongzhu. Very weird. So to me, that means UFC sees something in this guy that they want to promote him on a broadcast. He's fighting on the prelims. They're giving him Rongzhu, who is already a UFC reject, got his way back to the UFC through the road to UFC, who I've already said is ass. Road to UFC is buns. And then he comes in the UFC, comes back to the UFC, loses to Chris Padilla. Gets finished with like an elbow. It was a doctor stoppage, whatever, but he was getting pieced up. He was losing. So to me, it looks like this is a setup fight for Cody Steele. And I think Cody Steele does have some really solid skills. I mean, the guy's jiu-jitsu game is what he's built his career on. But then once he started MMA, the guy's just finishing dudes on the feet. Really solid boxing. I think his defense can use some improvements, but I don't really see Rongzhu exploiting those weaknesses where the guy he gets hit a little bit, when he's in the pocket exchanging. He's falling in love with his hands. I don't really like to see, but at least he has the grappling base to where he can let it go. And if he gets taken down, he trusts himself on the ground. So I think on the feet, Cody Steele can let his boxing go. Training that Syndicate MMA, I actually saw him when I was in Las Vegas and we went to Syndicate. Not a huge dude, 5'9". But, I believe in him. I think the guy's really good. I think he can get a victory here over Rongzhu. Rongzhu is just not a lot going on there. I mean, he's 24. He's had 31 fights. He's still young, but I just don't really see the improvements from him. Like, he's a road to UFC guy. Got cut by the UFC, went back to road to UFC, got back to the UFC, and then he looked shit. So I think Cody Steele probably wins here. I think he can win on the feet. I think he can win on the ground. And, I think Cody Steele gets this one done. UFC's obviously backing him with all the promotions that they've ran. I'll take Cody Steele here to get the dub. Kong Wang taking on Bruno Brasil. And I know a lot of you guys are scarred from the last Kong Wang fight. But to me, this one seems pretty straightforward. I think Kong Wang looked amazing in that fight until she got clipped with something. But that was against Gabriela Fernandez, who does have really solid striking with a lot of power. And she clipped Kong Wang after Kong Wang got super overconfident. She was pretty much just throwing whatever she wanted with no thought of what's coming back to her. She got clipped with something, she got dropped, and then she got her back taken and choked out. But before that, she was piecing up Gabriela Fernandez, doing whatever she wanted to. She's clearly an elite striker whose ground game, I don't even want to say it's bad because she was rocked and got her back taken and choked out. So I think she just got overconfident, but her skill set is way better than Bruno Brasil's. She's going to hit way harder than Bruno Brasil's. I don't think Bruno Brasil is going to come in here and grapple fuck Kong Wang. I just don't see it. Bruno Brasil is a strawweight moving up to 125. Yes, she trains with the Fighting Nerds. That's cool. But this girl has never really been like a real prospect. She's 3-2 in the UFC, And her wins are Molly McCann, Shauna Bannon, and what's her face on the Contender Series? Marnik Mann. You know, like very low-level wins. Molly McCann she's a popular figure, I guess I could say, but her skill set is just not that good. And Bruna Brasil is a big 115er going up to 125, where Kong Wang is a true 125er who, you know, based on what you see on the screen, they're both 5'6", but Kong Wang is a lot more dense, hits a lot harder, and probably just a lot more physical than Bruna Brasil. So I think Kong Wang gets this one done. How does Bruna Brasil win? Out-volume Kong Wang? Not going to happen. Knock out Kong Wang? Likely not to happen. Out-grapple Kong Wang? Bruna Brasil's grappling is not that good. So Kong Wang it is for me. I know you're going to be scarred by that. She's a big favorite again. I think she's like minus 450 or whatever, but I think she wins this fight at a pretty high clip, like 9 out of 10 times. So I'll take Kong Wang to get this one done. Better striker, better skill set, facing a strawweight, a true strawweight, going up to 125. I'll take her. Kong Wang it is. Wang Wang. Bang, bang, Wang gang. Next fight, Tom Nolan taking on Vyacheslav Borschev. This one is disgusting to me because it comes down to, you know, whose chin do you trust? I mean, Tom Nolan, not exactly the strongest chin. Borschev, not a strong chin with no grappling. So I guess maybe you could say you trust the Tom Nolan side more just because he has big power. His grappling, I think, is a little bit better than Borschev. Borschev gets taken down by whoever he wants or whoever wants to take him down. No takedown defense. He's also 33, and he's undersized. Tom Nolan's huge at 6'3", 73-inch reach. He's definitely not as technical as Borschev. Borshev's kickboxing is like so beautiful to watch, but he is hittable, and he doesn't have grappling, and he doesn't have much of a chin. So I think I'm going to side with Tom Nolan here, which is disgusting me because, like, if you ask me, before Tom Nolan went to the UFC and got knocked out by Nicholas Mota, would I take Tom Nolan over Borschev? Absolutely not. And maybe I switch this one, but right now I'm thinking early pick. I'm going to side with Tom Nolan because he's the underdog, because he's the younger guy, he's the bigger guy with better grappling, who also hits hard. And Borschev has just shown, like, you can either take him down, you can hurt him on the feet, you can hit him a lot on the feet. I mean, that fight that Borschev had with Lontop, Borschev is a much better striker than Lontop. But Lontop has crazy durability, and Borschev was hitting him with a bunch of big shots, and Lontop just didn't care. And Lontop was hitting Borschev with some big shots. And Borschev was able to take him. A lot of them were leg kicks. But, you know, you should be separating yourself from a James Lontop. And he just didn't really do that. It was a pretty close fight. So I'll take Tom Nolan here for the early pick. Younger guy from Australia, bigger, better grappling, and hits hard. I'll take Tom Nolan for the early pick. But, you know, if this line flips and Borschev is the underdog, I'm really just siding with the dog here because it comes down to who has the better chin. I guess Tom Nolan at this point. I don't know. Tom Nolan is the pick. Moving on. Jack Jenkins taking on Gabriel Santos. Gabriel Santos, very skilled fighter. Very skilled, and he has been respected by the books throughout his career, but there are a lot of flaws. I mean, the guy is pretty hittable. I don't think his grappling is, like, amazing, but it's probably better than Jack Jenkins. Jack Jenkins is a short guy. I mean, he's 5'7", you know, at 145. But, you know, Volk is 5'6". He's not Volk, but he does have pretty solid striking, really solid boxing, a lot of hard leg kicks, and he wants to keep the fight on the feet. If this fight plays out on the feet, I think Jack Jenkins can win. It just comes down to, can Gabriel Santos mix in some grappling, mix in some takedowns, win minutes that way? And Jack Jenkins has, I don't think it's technically lost rounds, but he has lost minutes in a fight. You know, Jamal Emmers took him down, and I thought Jamal Emmers should have won that fight. I actually had a bet on Jack Jenkins. And I don't know how we won that fight, but yeah, I mean, Jack Jenkins can lose minutes and rounds getting taken down. And I think Gabriel Santos probably tries to go that route. But on the feet, Gabriel Santos throws hard, throws a lot at you, but he is hittable in a lot of those exchanges. And we kind of saw that against David Onama. I mean, the guy got up, started throwing caution to the wind, and gets absolutely sparked. So They're both still, I mean, I'd say Jack Jenkins is more in his prime, but Gabriel Santos probably entering his prime. Maybe this is one that he drops, goes back to the books, and he's like, all right, I got to change some things up. But I think Gabriel Santos can have moments of grappling success here, but overall, I think Jack Jenkins could maybe do more damage on the feet and win this fight. So I'm going to side with Jack Jenkins here. He'll be my early pick. I think he's a plus 160 dog or somewhere around there. I'm looking at him. I'm debating it. I want to see more on film from Gabriel Santos just to see how he deals with leg kicks. But he's just so hittable on the feet. I think Jack Jenkins could probably exploit that. If he can stuff takedowns, he can win this fight. So Jack Jenkins will be the early pick for me. Gabriel Santos, really solid or promising prospect, but I think there's just some stuff that he's got to figure out and maybe adjust moving forward. Before we get into the main card, I said it at the beginning of the show, but if you want all my bets, I'm giving you my early picks and breakdowns here. But if you want my bets, I got 2 bets out for UFC 312. Jump in the Homo Fight Picks premium membership. Use my code HeyJob. You'll get a free trial, so you can hop in there, check those out. DFS plays will be up at least by Tuesday, if not on Monday. Depends on when they drop the lines. And you can get those early so you don't miss out on the lines. Link down in the description. Join the Homo Fight Picks premium membership and get my bets. If you need a sports book, there's a sportsbook available in all 50 states. Wager Attack, you get a 200% free play bonus. What that means, so if you deposit $100, they're going to give you $200 in free play. You can use that free play before you even use the $100. So you're going to get 200% of whatever you put in there added to your free play bonus. And if you deposit with crypto, you get a 10% cash bonus. So that's not free play bonus. So you deposit $100 worth of crypto, you're going to get $10 added to your cash balance. So big bonuses there. It's available in all 50 states. There's a link down in the description. Download Wager Attack. It's very easy to deposit as well. Once you sign up, you can deposit with crypto, with Cash App, Venmo, all that stuff. Figure it out. It's very easy. Okay, it's probably the easiest online sportsbook to deposit with. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I can help you. But there's a link down in the description if you need a sports book. So if you're in like California, Texas, where you can't use a DraftKings FanDuel, Wager Attack it is. I use it here in Florida because Hard Rock Bet doesn't always have like the best lines. Wager Attack has great lines. It's available in all 50 states. Download it, or not download it, but get yourself signed up on the website on Wager Attack, and you can bet money lines, props, parlays, all that kind of stuff on UFC Wager Attack. Link it down in the description. Let's get into the main card. Jake Matthews taking on Francisco Prado. Prado is 1-2 in the UFC, but he's only 22 years old. Okay, I may have dogged him at the beginning of the video, but I actually see some promise with the guy because of how young he is and how dynamic he is. Jake Matthews, on the other hand, 30 years old. I think he has like 20 UFC fights. Been in the UFC forever. And at this point in his career, it's like, you know, he hasn't really crossed much of a pinnacle to where you're like, okay, this guy can go places. He's kind of just in that realm of like taking fights. His last fight against Phil Rowe, I think I bet on Phil Rowe. If I did, it was probably pretty small. But I thought Phil Rowe could have easily won that fight. Like, Phil Rowe is 6'3", and he just doesn't throw. He just doesn't throw anything. He doesn't pump a jab, doesn't throw kicks. He just gets into a fight, and he just doesn't do anything. And Jake Matthews took advantage of that. It was hitting with a lot of boxing combinations and putting the pressure on Phil Rowe to where it made him uncomfortable. But you got to look at it. His last 3 wins, Jake Matthews, is Phil Rowe, Darius Flowers, and Andre Fialho. His losses, Matthew Semelsberger and Michael Morales. Now, Michael Morales, not a bad loss, but Semelsberger just got cut, and Semelsberger was dropping Jake Matthews with like whatever he wanted. Francisco Prado is a very dynamic striker with big power. I think if he comes into here with the mentality he had against Daniel Zellhuber, Jake Matthews might be in trouble because Prado was throwing everything he could at Daniel Zellhuber, but Zellhuber just was able to deal with it. He popped the jab out there, popped those front kicks, tried to keep him at range. Prado was doing everything he could to try to get into range and unleash combinations, but Zellhuber was just way too big. And I don't see that really playing a huge factor here because I think Prado can match up with Jake Matthews a lot better physically. I mean, Prado is 5'10", Matthews 5'11", and Matthews does have a little bit of a reach, but he doesn't use it like Zellhuber. Zellhuber is so good at popping the jab out there and just keeping it out there to keep you at range. Prado just couldn't get around it. In this spot, Prado is the underdog, and I think Prado can put a lot of pressure on Jake Matthews and make him uncomfortable. If he can land a knockdown or two like Matthew Semmelsberger did, he could definitely win this fight, if not knock out Jake Matthews. Prado, being 22, training at the Goat Shed, I do believe in the Goat Shed gym. I like the Goat Shed gym. I think they do a lot of good work there, building these young South American, Central American guys to where they bring them to the U.S., give them good coaching, keep them in the gym all the time. They're always working, put a lot of investment in them, and turn them into something. I mean, he's 22. He's had 3 UFC fights now. I think this could be a win for him where he's like, all right, he's improving. He has a lot of promise. He's very young, solid chin. Like, the guy can take a punch, no doubt, brick head, and he can throw a lot at you. So I think if Prado pressures him, can make Matthews uncomfortable. The only thing I'm a little bit afraid of is the grappling from Jake Matthews. If Jake Matthews can level change, get some takedowns, Matthews' ground game is going to be better than Prado's. So Prado's got to keep this fight on the feet. If he does, he definitely has a chance to cash as a dog here. So right now, the early pick for me is going to be Prado, because I don't think Jake Matthews, like, what has he done? You know, like, he's been in the UFC a long time. We know what he is. And I look at what he is in the UFC. I think a improved version of Prado, coming off a loss to Zellhuber, who I think is really good, can win this fight. So I'll take Prado for the early pick, and we can move on. 2, light heavyweights. Jimmy Crute taking on Rodolfo Bellato. Bellato has 1 UFC fight. It's over Ihor Potieria, where he almost got knocked out. Okay, so he's 1-0 in the UFC. Jimmy Crute retired after getting choked out by Alonzo Menafield. He retired at 28 years old. I guess back then he was 27. And now he's back. Well, what do we think about this? You know, like, pick your poison here. You know, Jimmy Crute has fought a lot of solid guys, and at times he's looked good, but he hasn't looked good in a long time. And then he retires. And then we have Bellato, 1 UFC fight. It's a win over Ihor Potieria. Who do we believe in here? For me, I guess I got to believe in Bellato, because I think Bellato at least has a future to look forward to. What is Jimmy Crute looking at right now? A comeback to the UFC? I mean, the guy's 1-3-1 in his last 5. He retired. He was ready to just hang him up, and now he's just ready to come back. To me, that just smells like I need a paycheck, dude. I need a paycheck. I'm 28, and I'm retired from MMA? Nah, I need a paycheck, bro. And he's taking on Bellato, who's beatable, but, like, Bellato at least is probably working his ass off in the gym. He's trying to improve. He's 29. He's had 1 UFC fight. He's coming off his 4 straight wins. Bellato's stand-up is not great. It's serviceable in some areas. His ground game, I think, is a lot better. He's a big dude for light heavyweight. I think he can win this fight. I'll take Bellato for my early pick. I just don't think Crute's stand-up is good at all. I don't think Crute's grappling is going to play a major factor here against Bellato, who's also a good grappler. So I'll take Rodolfo Bellato to win this fight. Disgusting fight. You know, if Jimmy Crute goes out there, loses, and hangs the glove up again, like, just cut him. Just cut him. He retired already. You're bringing him back. He clearly just wants a paycheck. And is what it is. I mean, he's like, all right, UFC's coming to Australia. Maybe, you know, I'll just pick up another paycheck and go on with my life. You know, he's going to be 29. Come on, man. Come on. Bellato it is. Heavyweights. So Taliesin Teixeira has never fought in the UFC, and Justin Tafa is 4-4 in the UFC. What a featured bout to, enter the title fights we got going on here. At least we can hope somebody's going to sleep. Taliesin looks huge. The dude's 6'7", 83-inch reach, and he's finished everybody in the first round. Tafa, on the other hand, fat, 6 foot, but has big power and a decent chin. A decent chin. I don't want to say like it's a good chin, but it's a decent chin. Tafa's only chance to win this is to land like a big overhand left. And it is possible, but do I see it happening? Probably not. I think Taliesin is going to be able to keep his range. Now, in his Contender Series fight, he was taking some risks. Like, the guy he fought in the Contender Series was not good. He was a blown-up light heavyweight who hadn't fought in a long time, and he was like a minus 1,000 favorite. He was getting tagged a little bit by that guy, Arthur Lopez. So I think I had a bet on Taliesin. I don't know. Definitely didn't bet him at minus 1,000, but I was like, holy, like, dude, you're 6'7", like, keep your range. Why are you engaging with this guy? He was kind of getting backed up against the cage, and this guy was just being a maniac, just throwing whatever. But ultimately, Taliesin found like a nice long right hand that put him out, which is really nice. I think Taliesin's a good heavyweight prospect, but we haven't seen him past round one. We know he has big power. We know he's huge. He's going to be tough to hit at range. There are some question marks with Teixeira, but I just don't really believe in Tafa. A lot of these guys out here are like, oh, Tafa bros. Dude, the Tafa brothers are not good. Like, they're just not. I don't think Tafa gets a win here. I'm going to side with Taliesin Teixeira. Tafa needs a big overhand left early, or I guess an ability to wear out Taliesin. I don't think Taliesin's a guy that is going to truly gas out. So I'll take Taliesin Teixeira to win this one. Bigger, younger, better future, and never been a believer in the Tafas whatsoever. So Taliesin it is for me. He'll be the pick. Moving on. Co-main event, women's strawweight title is on the line. And one big thing when I looked at this one that jumped off the board to me is that Weili is 35. For some reason, I thought she was like 31, 32. She's 35. And she's looked great, especially recently, but you got to look at the competition a little bit. I mean, she lost to Rose twice, and then Rose leaves, and she fought a washed-up version of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, like completely washed. She beat a washed-up version of Carla Esparza, completely washed. She beat Amanda Lemos, who cannot grapple. She has no takedown defense whatsoever. None. Nada. And she fought Yan Xiaonan, who can't wrestle or grapple either. She has a decent right hand, and she has a pretty solid striking game, Yan Xiaonan does, but she can't wrestle and she can't grapple. It's always been her fault. And Zhang Weili was actually getting tagged a little bit, but she did have a lot of success with her grappling and her ground game. So that's her last 4 wins. Like, there's a lot of holes in a lot of those fighters. And I look at Tatiana Suarez. The girl's been competing and wrestling since she was like 3 or 4 years old, dude. She was supposed to be an Olympic wrestler until she had her injury, and then she got cancer, and then she got into jiu-jitsu, and then she got into MMA, and then she started competing in MMA, and she's blown through everybody. And she's had a lot of injuries to deal with throughout the years, which is obviously not a great thing. You know, maybe her body has failed her. She's 34. Maybe her body is not in the best shape it could be. You always got to think about an injury that could happen. But I look at this and I'm like, Zhang Weili, going to be the better striker. But she has like 50% takedown defense. And Tatiana Suarez doesn't really need to strike. Like, she just needs to get takedowns. She's the best wrestler women's MMA has ever seen. Undoubtedly. It's women's strawweight. Do we see a lot of knockouts in women's strawweight? No. What do we see in women's strawweight? A girl that can get takedowns can win fights. And Tatiana Suarez is the best wrestler women's MMA has ever seen. So Tatiana Suarez is going to be my pick. She has gone through hell and back to be in the position that she's been in. She's been competing in combat sports, wrestling, whatever it is, since a very young age. She's 10-0. She's never lost. She's ran through all these girls, beaten Alexa Grasso, finished her. Beaten Carla Esparza before she was washed, finished her. Beaten a lot of great girls, like really solid competition. Any girl she's faced, Jessica Andrade, submitted her. I think Tatiana Suarez wins this fight. I know the injuries and inactivity is very tough to get over, but I just think a women in 115 with the wrestling that Tatiana Suarez has, and considering Zhang Weili's shown a lot of holes with her takedown defense, she can win this fight. And she's even money right now. So Tatiana Suarez it is for me. I'll take her for the early pick. And yeah, I think she gets this one done. I don't think Zhang Weili has the wrestling to deal with Tatiana Suarez. She's exposed every single girl that she's faced with her wrestling, and I think she could expose Zhang Weili here. So Tatiana Suarez for the pick. That brings us to the main event. The rematch, DDP versus Sean Strickland. Right now, before we get into the breakdown, right now, I think DDP is about minus 220. And if you watch the first fight, the closing lines would maybe be DDP minus 130, Sean Strickland plus 10, plus 110. So right off the bat, based on their first fight, I think the line is a little bit indicative of what Dricus has done, in his last fight, submitting Israel Adesanya. I think it's a little bit rich, just considering how close the first fight played out, but you also have to think adjustments that could be made. Maybe DDP makes the adjustments and he looks minus 220. And I'm a big fan of DDP. Everybody knows that. I've cashed every single time he's fought. He's never lost in the UFC, and he's cashed as an underdog for me in 3 straight fights. Underdog, I bet him as an underdog against Adesanya. I think he was about to pick him against Sean Strickland when I bet it. And like a plus 300 underdog against Robert Whittaker. I believe in DDP. I don't think there's a lot of guys out there that can match his physicality. I don't think there's guys out there that can figure out his weird-ass striking. His grappling game is really good. But Sean Strickland, to me, I think is a very tough fight because Strickland doesn't make a lot of mistakes. If he gets taken down, like he showed in the first DDP fight, he has the ability to just get back up. And the pace that he puts on does slow down like nearly everybody. DDP was the only guy that didn't really melt to the pressure of Sean Strickland, but you could tell it still wore on him. So going into this one, what does Strickland do differently? I guess maybe let it go a little bit more. I don't know. Because how he fought in the first fight is how he fights in every fight. What is he going to do differently? I don't think there's a lot of things he can do differently. What could DDP do differently? Not stand in front of him and take jabs, put him on the back foot, grapple more. Like, I think there's more options for DDP, and maybe that's why the line is minus 220, because we've seen him submit an Adesanya. We've seen him knock down, I guess kind of not really knock down Adesanya, but put the pressure on him, wilt him a little bit, and look good at times. But he's also looked really bad at times. So, I don't know. I actually think, my honest opinion, with biases aside, I think the line on DDP is probably just not even worth playing at minus 220 because the first fight played out so close, and with the adjustments that DDP could make, maybe it makes sense, but Sean Strickland, that's his style. That's what he's going to come into every fight and do, and it looked effective for a lot of the fight against DDP in the first one, and maybe it's more effective in this one. Who knows? But I think DDP is in his prime, and I think there are some adjustments that he could make. Maybe he has more confidence going into this one. You know, when he fought Strickland, he was the challenger, wasn't the champ yet. And you know what they say, when you get the belt, you get like 25% better or something like that. I don't know if it's bullshit, but you get a little bit more confidence. He just submitted Adesanya, so maybe he has more confidence in his grappling here against Sean Strickland and is able to have more success that way. But my honest opinion, the line is a little bit too rich for DDP. I am still going to pick him to win this fight because I thought he won the first fight. I think he just does more damage to Strickland throughout the fight. I think he did more damage to Strickland throughout the fight. You just got to stay away from the jab. You stay away from the jab from Strickland and you blitz him. I think DDP didn't blitz enough in that first fight, and maybe that's the adjustment. If you blitz him, get him on the back foot, because he does this thing where he's walking you down, pumping the jab, but then when you throw at him, he just kind of covers up like this. He's just very good defensively, but if you blitz him and create angles, then you can have more success. You just can't stay in that linear pace that Strickland likes to take, cut angles, and you can have a lot of success. Dricus du Plessis is going to be my pick, and I think he gets this one done. A lot of times, rematches go the same way. So DDP will be my pick. I appreciate you for watching. Like the video for me. Subscribe to the channel. Again, if you want my bets, jump in the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership. Sign up to Wager Attack if you want to bet on UFC in any of the 50 states. We'll be back here throughout the week with the official picks once all the due diligence is officially done. Best bets video throughout the week and the live stream with Matty Bets on Friday for the long shots. Till next time, hey, Job Picks.